Welcome to the Foundery, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
Welcome back, Foundry family. I want to thank you for your viewership and listenership. You have helped this podcast become what it is today. Without you, there is no podcast. This is the second of two highlight episodes consisting of the best moments of the first 127 episodes. We will resume our regularly scheduled programming on Monday. Enjoy. Catch you on the flip side.
Last month, I only just got out of the Navy within the last month or so, and there really is a few direct parallels. One of them being handling other people's money. I wouldn't have thought that I was in the financial game while I was in the Navy, but it really was. We talk about it all the time. We're a steward of the taxpayers. The assets we have, the supplies we have, they are not ours. They are paid for by the federal government, which is, working on behalf of the taxpayers themselves. And that is why we have aircraft that are 60 years old. They're not just old, we're making them run for as long as we can. And you do that by changing the oil, paying attention to what the needs are, fixing things and maintaining things to a T, not just for safety, but for the fact that you need them to run the distance and work for as long as you can, right? Our helicopters, I was fortunate to fly and work on something that's relatively brand new. It's about 10, 15 years old now when you look at the entire fleet of helicopters that I was flying. And I was fortunate. I got to play with some new toys that were pretty sweet, but they weren't mine. They were other people's. And within real estate, I get to do some pretty sweet things. We're buying hundreds of units at a time. That's something I couldn't have even imagined 5 years ago. But I'm well aware that I'm using other people's capital to do so. And we are in tune to the fact that it's not ours, and we need to do right by everyone who puts their faith and trust in us. And it's just an important aspect to not forget. We might be buying big, we might be going big and going after large deals, but it's only possible because we're empowered by the people who have decided, hey, we're doing the right thing and we're going to make the right decisions. So we owe, right? We owe other people who have put their faith.
My advice for, fellow podcasters is consistency. I think that's the biggest thing that I can recommend is, to maintain that consistent flow of episodes, whether it's every week, whether it's every 2 weeks, whether it's every month, whatever your schedule is. But that consistency, even when you feel like you don't have a lot of listeners at the beginning, right? Or you're getting started, or you're just so nervous and, it's difficult to speak into the mic at the beginning. It just gets so much easier the more you do it. And so consistency is really been key for us.
So, there's a number of tricks that you can, I wouldn't call them tricks, but a number of, strategies that you can take in focusing your time and making sure that you're not juggling too many balls at the same time. And I try to divide my time blocking so that I'm focused on specific activities, whether it's, something like this, a podcast. So I'll break out 2 hours to prepare and 1 hour for the podcast, so that it's all condensed and I'm focused on that time. And then, when I'm doing things for the business, running payroll or looking at, underwriting or cash flow or whatever, I will block that time specifically for doing those activities. And that allows me to not jump from one activity to the next and get distracted and feel like I didn't get anything done at the end of the day. That's one of my strategies. There's a great book, Deep Work. I think it's Cam Newport. It's all about focusing and getting things done, in a timely manner, and how to stay on track.
There was a need for people who wanted to get into commercial real estate. They were a little bit skeptical because they heard how long it takes to close their first deal. And we said, we can expedite that process. We've been through all the hardships. We've made the cold calls. We've found out what works and what doesn't. And we took both of those and put those into the course and show people how to close their first deal, how to follow up on those deals, how to amplify business, and really how to provide value to your team, your brokerage within that first year. Because George, as you know, it is sometimes really difficult if you're coming from another industry or you're in residential and you're moving to commercial and you're like, I don't know what to do? You spend first few months just trying to figure it out. And some people just don't have, 6 months or a year to close their first deal. So we amplified that process. We sped it up, put all this knowledge into one course. And it's phenomenal, George, how much it has meant to
For us,
so
it's
many.
very, very important to really understand, in terms of working with investors, right? What is their goal? Is this going to be the right opportunity for them? Because depending on what their goals are, it may or may not. And if it's not, then we'd rather direct them in the right direction, right? And connect them with the right person. So one, it's that, right? It's really understanding what is the big why and what do they as an investor, what are they looking for? Are they looking for quarterly cash flow? Are they looking for a big lump sum at the end, right? And that's going to really tell us what kind of investment opportunities to present to them. And then, the other part of it for sure as well is maintaining that constant communication, right? So for us, whether that's continuing to, publish on the podcast and bring value, we have a newsletter. We're pretty active on social media as well, as so it's the more that we can show ourselves and talk about what we're doing, people get to know you, even if it is digital. So a lot of times we've had listeners on the podcast, hey, I've gotten so much value from your show. I'd love to hear more about investment opportunities, right? And you just at that point have done so much for them already, and they feel that they know you at a very personal level. And so it just helps strengthen that relationship so much more.
Some additional requirements when you're talking about funds of funds that you need to be aware of. And those are really related to becoming an investment advisor, like, any of your Morgan Stanleys or Wells Fargo. Those types of companies are investment advisors. And that's because they're taking large amounts of capital from retail investors, and they're investing it, on the investor's behalf without a whole lot of knowledge about the underlying investments. And so when you are operating a fund of funds like we do, the goal is to be as transparent as possible so that you're not acting as an investment advisor for the investors. And the way that you do that is by providing, detail about the underlying investments, who the operators are, what properties they're investing in, what their funds are, what the returns are like, so that the true, investor that you're attracting is making a decision on their own to invest in that fund for, the reasons that the sponsors have.